So we are going to start off with just introducing ourselves, saying what we do in EcoHouse, and just a little bit about ourselves. So my name is Erin Tansimore. I am the president of EcoHouse this semester, and I am also the media and marketing chair of the house. So being president includes all of the, the typical presidential things, communicating with the administration, etc. And being media and marketing chair, I am in charge of all of the social media accounts for the collective, which I'll talk about a little bit more later, and our website and all of that stuff. I do also want to note, if all of you guys could mute yourselves just so that it's easier for us to flow through this, that would be wonderful. So yeah, that's me. I'm a senior, class of 2020. My POE is Individualized Environmental and Gender Studies, and I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Cassidy?
I'm Cassidy Titus. I'm a senior studying wildlife conservation. I'm from Bel Air, Maryland, and within EcoHouse, I serve as the operations chair. So I'm kind of like the handy woman, and I lead any sustainable construction efforts, like the construction of our compost bin and raised garden beds.
Hi, I'm Elisha Serotta. I'm an environmental studies and sociology POE, and I'm a senior, and I'm the recruitment chair of EcoHouse. So I oversaw like the application and the interview process as we navigated that this semester.
I'm Rhiannon Denz. I'm a senior studying environmental science, and in EcoHouse I was a co-chair of research, which basically meant leading research efforts, but a lot of that fell to all of us, especially Erin.
My name is Arthur Jaros, and I am a sophomore, and I study advocacy through theater. I am the outreach chair, which is basically just a secretary with a little more responsibility. So I'm in charge of taking meeting minutes and reaching out to the community.
I'm Gabe McDowell. I'm a sophomore studying computational physics. And I am the funding chair, which is basically the treasurer who also thinks about, the budget in terms of the research too. So.
I'm Aislinn Olthoff. I'm a senior. I'm from Silver Spring, Maryland. My POE is wildlife conservation with a secondary in French. And I was a co-research chair as well, and that just meant helping to facilitate the research, especially for this project, with the help of really everyone in the house.
Awesome. So that's all of us, and I want to give you guys, first of all, thank you all for joining us. We really appreciate it. So I'm going to go over our situation analysis, pretty much just like who we are, what we're doing, and why we're doing it, before we actually get into our creation of our strategic plan. So our situation analysis basically is Juniata College EcoHouse is a sustainability-based living collective at Juniata College in Huntingdon, Pennsylvania, which is situated on the land of the Oneonta of the Oneida Nation, the people of the Standing Stone. The collective has existed in various forms for many years, which many of you who have been here for a while probably know, but it had been dormant for about 1 year until a group of students worked with the college administration throughout 2016 and 2017 to restart the club and get a college-owned house to be dedicated as the new EcoHouse. The current form of EcoHouse is now finishing its second full academic year of existence and has received ample recognition from the student body and administration of the college, as well as from the Huntingdon community in the form of event attendance, funding as a registered student organization, academic support, and faculty advising. EcoHouse provides an educational space for the campus community to learn and grow as advocates for the environment with a focus on environmental justice, as well as making individual and collective contributions towards sustainability. The members of EcoHouse often have a wide variety of POEs. We definitely do this year, because environmental issues are prevalent in all disciplines. EcoHouse helps to prepare students for future in promoting environmentalism and environmental justice. So environmental justice is mentioned a couple times in there. It's really important to us to acknowledge the environmental justice portion of our strategic plan, which was kind of the basis of the whole project. So a little background on that. Environmental justice is an area of study and a global movement that calls for the fair and equitable treatment and inclusion of all people within the development, implementation, and enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, and policies. And all people refers to all global citizens regardless of race, color, nationality, religion, income, gender, sexual orientation, or ability. Environmental justice gained relevance in the 1970s and 80s. It has been championed in the US primarily by people of color. The movement is working toward equitable levels of protection from environmental hazards and access to the decision-making processes for policies to promote and maintain a healthy environment. And it did go along following with the Southern-based Black-led American Freedom Movement, otherwise known as the Civil Rights Movement, and it brought awareness to the disproportionate effects of environmental health hazards on communities of color that are also disproportionately impoverished in the United States and beyond. So the environmental justice movement encompasses education about environmental racism, and it has grown as the effects of human-caused climate change have become more and more prevalent to the people and governments of the world. Environmental activism and environmental justice are inextricably linked, and many groups advocating for climate change awareness and putting an end to environmentally unethical practices, such as us, have also begun to incorporate aspects of environmental justice into their activism. Environmentalism, like I said, which encompasses activism, education, sustainable living and eating, sustainable infrastructure, and more, is therefore based not only on science, but also on human rights and economic, political, and social justice. So that is our introduction, our situation analysis, why we're here, why we're doing what we're doing. And without further ado, we pre-recorded our presentation, so I will be sharing my screen with you all to show that. It's about a half hour long, and we will stop for questions and comments, etc. At the end. So to start our project, we decided that we had to figure out how to make a strategic plan, because none of us had actually ever done anything like this before. We have a variety of POEs in the house, but none of us have really done much in the form of business or strategic planning. So we had a lot to learn at the beginning of this. And we came up with a pretty good outline of how we were going to proceed from the very beginning. So the first step of making a strategic plan is preparation. So our preparation first and foremost included making a timeline. So we made a timeline for the entire project from the very beginning so that we would have something to refer back to throughout the whole project. And so the timeline included each job that needs to be done, each very specific job that we needed to do, the delegation for the House member that was going to do that job, and then the deadline. And we did have to do some editing of that once the coronavirus pandemic started, but we just took our previous timeline and just changed it up a little bit, but we still kept the basic backbone that we had from the beginning. So that was our very first priority for the preparation of making our plan. So, and then we also had to determine our current status. So we made our timeline, determined our current status, and then began to identify strategies and tactics for going forward. And then after identifying our strategies and tactics, we had to do pretty much the bulk of it, which was collecting and organizing our data. So our data included internal and external inputs, which we gathered in order to assess our priorities and how they are affected by our immediate surroundings, as well as our general modern society and our restrictions on resources. And then the second part of our data collection was our individual research. So we all had different parts of our individual research, and we will discuss those later on. And we used a SWOT analysis and also our risk assessment and scenario planning in order to assess all of that data, which again, we will discuss going on later. Our second part of how to make a strategic plan was the actual creation of the plan. So this included, first and foremost, mission and vision statements, which took a while for us to get through, which we will, again, discuss later on. And then we had to decide which framework we wanted to implement in the making of the actual plan. There are multiple frameworks to choose from, and we decided to choose the theory of change framework because it most aligned with what we were planning on doing. And then the third part was the largest bulk of our creation, which was the defining of our strategic priorities, key initiatives, and our measures indicating success, which again, we'll go into more detail on later. And then the third part and final part of our making strategic plan was the implementation of the plan. So this is an ongoing process. This isn't something that we have done a lot for yet because it is designed and planned to be for going into the future. So as far as implementation goes, it includes aligning our resources with our strategies, which is going to include our allocating for money from the student government, and then holding meetings and recording results and keeping up with the strategic plan and making sure that we are continually aligning with it in the future in everything that we do.
So the assessment of current status is exactly what it sounds like. It's one of the first things we did in order to start with like intention and to really be clear of like what we are and what we want to be. So it was a lot of looking at now and where we want to go. And so for the hypothesis, we talked about that we're not quite where we want to be and what we need to improve in order to reach our present goals. And this kind of led into our strategic plan. And then we created the project abstract, which was like a summary of the different parts of the strategic plan and asserts the overall goal, which is to have like a structure for the future of the house and like a future plan for houses going forward. And then from that, we went into like our current status and broke it down into some categories. So like we evaluated events, communal living, sustainability initiatives, community engagement, and overall effectiveness. And we broke that down farther to say we're having this many events this per month and doing these kinds of events and stuff like that, and broke it down farther to really assess what we have already done. And then from that, we went and looked into like what parts of that do we like, what is going well. So we thought of things like collaboration and our work ethic as things that we do well as a house. And then from that, we looked at what we needed to improve as a house. So like our physical structure and community outreach. And then last semester, probably the first thing we did for this project was create what we thought would be our mission statement. So originally, what is now our vision statement was our mission statement, and it took us hours to get this. And after we wrote it, we kind of realized that it was more of a vision statement because a mission statement has to be like a lot more active. So I'll read this to you. Our mission statement is to promote intersectional environmentalism through education, sustainable living, and advocacy. And then our vision statement is, as an environmental community, we recognize the value of our natural world, the current state of our planet, and the actions humanity must take to enact change. Following the ethics of a service collective, we promote inclusivity and intersectionality as we navigate environmentalism and ethical lifestyle choices in our present day political and economic climate. So part of what took us so long to do this is it was a lot of like, well, we kind of don't like this wording, and we ended up making lists of like phrases that we wanted to be in there. And one of the things that we decided was that we wanted to be kind of referred to as like kind of a sustainability collective or like a service collective, because that really describes who we are, is we're a collective of people and we're sustainable. And so this was just a way of us to say where we wanted to go.
So after we were able to assess our current status and write our mission and vision statements, we could write our strategies and tactics. So we identified 7 different strategies based on our current status, mission statement, and resource availability. Strategies are what we want to do and are currently doing. And for each of these strategies, we also devised a number of tactics for implementing those strategies. So sustainable living, one of our strategies. To implement sustainable living, we'd like to, of course, reduce our waste, recycle, compost, things like that. Also, we'd like to implement some structure upgrades, so using more energy efficient appliances, maybe installing solar panels in the future, landscaping to native plants, perhaps even a LEED certification. We already do some campus and community outreach, but we'd like to do more of this. For example, we have the faculty open house, a vegan Thanksgiving. We'd also like to do more volunteering, perhaps helping with the community soup kitchen and the community garden. We'd also like to do more partnering with local businesses. For example, Green Space is a new business in Huntingdon with values that we also share. We also would like to partner more with other clubs. In the past, we've already partnered with the Environmental Coalition and Hillel. And we'd also like to continue educating ourselves, so with whether that's through an EcoHouse course or research like we've done this semester.
So in terms of internal inputs and thinking of what those would be, we were trying to answer the question, how do we assess ourselves and the success of our plan? And so first of all, we have to prioritize our goals, make sure we know which goals are most important to EcoHouse and which goals are most important in serving our mission and our vision and leading us to where we want to go. And then reassessing our goals is really important because, you know, the world around us is constantly changing. And so we need to reassess our goals and reprioritize our goals to fit the current environment in the future so that we can continue serving our mission. And then in terms of assessing the success of our plan, we have physical assessment of goals, whether we have reached our goals, our physical goals like structural changes and hosting events, and those can all be internally assessed. And then we can assess the success of our plan through further data collection for assessing our success of goals like our impact on communities, and those can be assessed through data collection.
After we identify the internal inputs, we then found external inputs, which are and answer the question, how do modern society and current events affect what we're trying to accomplish? It is important to be aware of societal and cultural influences in order to properly plan and implement our strategic plan. Some of these external inputs are political, societal opposition, so seeing more towards laws being taken away, certain political parties, capitalism even, aspects of that. And then also another thing is POC relation to environmentalism, so more likely to be affected health-wise, aka there's one well-known Flint water crisis that is still going on. Since like the beginning of the colonization of America, there's been abuse of indigenous people and also across the world by taking and destroying their lands. Meat culture and increase in public knowledge and initiative has started to appear, which is exciting. And there are some younger environmental leaders and movements that are starting to get more popular and are more well known.
So next up, we have our SWOT analysis, which we talked a little bit about earlier, and it stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So first, analyzing our strengths, 3 of them being our overall dedication to environmentalism and sustainability, the physical space that we have on campus, aka EcoHouse, and our creative programming and pre-existing partnerships.
And identifying weaknesses, we had a list of them, but 3 of them being our low attendance to events. We do keep track of all of our all the attendance to all of our events that we host in order to keep assessing this, and we have noticed low attendance overall in general. A second one being a stigma about who can be involved. We noticed this through getting feedback from our peers. and seeing that there is a stigma attached to who can come and who feels more welcome, as well as just the general stigma of environmentalism in the world. It is often seen as a more white issue, and so we definitely see that as a weakness for our collective. And then another is lack of funding. There are only so many funds to go around for registered student organizations at Juniata, so we do have to acknowledge that we can sometimes have a lack of funding due to that restriction.
And speaking of funding, moving forward, one of the opportunities we like to explore is external funding. Another opportunity we have is to create and expound upon our campus and community partnerships. Like we explained earlier, local businesses like Standing Stone or Garlic Clove could be opportunities for us to partner. And then greater collaboration with the Juniata College, specifically administration. We'd like to see a little bit more support from them and help us realize our goals.
And then the last part of our SWOT analysis was threats. And 3 of them are negative stigmas. I did touch on that earlier. That is also one of our weaknesses. But negative stigmas are also a threat to make our weaknesses worse and to take away from our strengths as well. Loss of funding is also a threat because we never know really what's going to happen as the college changes and the priorities of the college change. So, and since we are depending on the college primarily right now for funding, we do have to see that as a threat. And then our third is losing our current EcoHouse structure. We do know that there are plans that are going to most likely be put into place in the next 10 years that will affect the physical structure that we have right now. And so we have to acknowledge that as a threat, though it can also be seen as a strength because that will give us an opportunity to make a new physical space on campus. So with the SWOT analysis, the reason that we did this was in order to obviously analyze all of our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, but also to apply this whenever we were creating the rest of the plan. So we use this as sort of a framework going forward to decide what our priorities would be in order to strengthen our strengths and strengthen our weaknesses and capitalize on our opportunities as well as address our threats. And as I mentioned before, we used feedback from peers a lot to come up with these, and then we also use knowledge of our past. So we collaborated with each other and we discussed what has happened in the past in order to decide what our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats were, and how to address them going further.
So as EcoHouse grows and changes, it's inevitable that we will encounter some forms of adversity. So by creating a risk assessment, we have the opportunity to already have some problem-solving ideas set in place. Risk assessments are used by many different industries to prevent safety hazards, promote financial stability, and lower societal risk, all of which apply to EcoHouse in some way or another. So Rhiannon and I went through some of these scenarios and applied standard factors for risk assessment to plan future problem-solving solutions. So possible issues that are relevant to us that could fall into these categories may include changes of ideals or values within the house, financial constraints to achieve goals, and campus engagement issues. Factors that we ran through for each of these scenarios included the potential risk, analyzing that risk, so when it's occurring, the scale of it and the scope, existing control measures that we already have in place, so for example, our mission statement and our bylaws, preventative measures, so revisiting the values that we already have, and responsibilities, so whose responsibility the problem solving falls onto, and most of the time that is each member of EcoHouse. And it's important to keep in mind that the risks themselves, as well as how big of a threat they are, will continually change as the house changes.
So a part of our research project that was not initially part of our overall outline of the project was our website creation. So primarily, we were going to do this regardless of what our research was going to be this semester, but we did decide that it worked well in with our project as a whole. So we created our website we used Google Sites in order to do this, just because we didn't have the funding for it at the time, and it is a free framework. And the reason that we did this was because we recognized the need, especially after doing our data collection, but even before, we recognized the need for having a very strong online presence, especially in today's day and age. We all know how important it is to be visible and kind of legitimized based on your online presence. And so we knew that having a website would make us on kind of the next level of legitimization. And we also wanted to use it as an additional way to build our community. So we do have other social media accounts, and we have had them from the beginning. So we have a Facebook page, an Instagram account, and a Twitter account. And those have all been utilized a lot and have been great for community building. But we wanted to take a step further to build our community and in creating our website. So the components of our website that is now live and has been live since 2 months ago, approximately. The components are our homepage, which you can see part of here. We have an individual page for each member of the house, each current member. We also have an alumni page that showcases all of the EcoHouse members from the past. And then we have a page all about our projects, events, and our contacts. So our contact includes all of our other social medias as well as our email. And then at the bottom of each page, we have a land acknowledgement and a disclaimer. So our land acknowledgement is the same one that we did at the beginning of this presentation, and the disclaimer is just about how we are not directly affiliated with Juniata College, and in that our opinions are not affiliated with them, they are just our own. And then another part of the website is the logo, which we also created for as another part of kind of legitimization. And so we have our logo up there in the top corner, and we are hopefully going to be using that in the future with other advertising things as well. And then next year, we are planning on using our RSO funding to purchase our own domain so that we don't have the Google domain that was given to us. So that's going to hopefully serve to further legitimize us as well.
One of the longest and most in-depth aspects of our creation of the plan was the individual data collection. First, before we even started any of the research, we divided the topics amongst members so that it would be more evenly split and that we wouldn't all be overwhelmed with only having one person do the research. So they were kind of based off of community levels, both from Huntingdon out to beyond in sustainable nonprofits and small businesses in the USA. Some examples from the Huntingdon community is the Huntingdon Conservation District, which would be really cool to be able to work with. So it's important to know what is out there in our local community. And then college level sustainability collectives are Dickinson College, who we've been in contact with. They have an EcoHouse that is similar to ours, entitled the Treehouse. The Juniata College administration is also closely tied to EcoHouse, and they do have lead gold certifications on Founders Hall and Racetown Field Station. So that would be really cool to be able to apply to EcoHouse, if not our current structure, future structures. The Juniata College student body also is influenced on our house, and we are sometimes partnered with JEC through events, and we hope to do more with them in the future. And lastly, we have the sustainable nonprofits and small businesses in the USA. There are so many environmental collectives around the US that it's hard to narrow down to one, but a couple are 1% for the Planet and Earth Justice, amongst others. And this is important because through our data collection, we realize that we have the opportunity to address and act upon prevalent needs of various local and national communities. An example of this is being more active in the Huntingdon community and maybe doing more events with advocacy and direct action.
So after we did all of our data collection, we had to move to actually creating the physical writing of the plan itself. And this included, first and foremost, the development of our strategic priorities. So quick overview of some definitions. Strategic priorities are defined as measures put in place to ensure that we know how our overall mission and vision statement goals are being achieved. So they are the things that we are putting in place to make sure that we are staying on track towards our overall larger goals. The key initiatives, there are multiple key initiatives for each strategic priority, and those are the projects that are the actions that we're taking to achieve our goals. So they're the actionable events that we're going to take based on the strategic priority. And then measures indicating success are defined as ways to make sure that the key initiatives and the strategic priorities are being strategically and effectively worked towards. So we use those measures to obviously indicate the success or the failure of our strategic priorities, and then continue to adapt going forward. So how did we develop our strategic priorities? We did a lot of group brainstorming. All semester we had research meetings on a very regular basis, and we did a lot of group brainstorming in order to decide what was the most important to us and how we were going to do it. So our strategic priority brainstorming sessions, we utilize the theory of change framework in order to determine the connections between all of our research, because up until this point, we had our data collection and we had our mission statement and we had all of the different parts of our research. And so for the strategic priorities, because they're so important, we had to kind of combine everything together in order to define, like I said, what's most important to us. The key initiatives of each strategic priority were determined based on a SWOT analysis. So we used our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats to determine what projects and initiatives would be the most effective to work towards our priorities. And then to create our measures, we referred a lot to our data collection in order to decide how we would define success or failure for each of the priorities and the initiatives. And of course, we left up a lot to be interpreted and changed along the way in future years so that everything can continue to work towards our larger mission and vision.
So a theory of change framework was very, very useful for us. It's a methodology to promote social change, and it's a way to sort of mind map to get from what we do to go towards what we want to achieve. So basically you're starting with inputs, working your way up to creating smaller goals, getting to outputs, and finally reaching our long-term goal. So the importance to this in our strategic plan was its function as a brainstorming tool to create those strategic priorities we wanted to incorporate into the plan. So it's really sort of a way to take a step back and come up with concrete links between events that we wanted to hold, the audience that we wanted to reach, and how we could identify if we succeeded in carrying those things out. Examples of what we brainstormed for a theory of change framework were: how can we promote environmental justice on campus? What can we do regularly to reinforce that value? Can this objective be tied to other many outcomes or goals we want to achieve under this larger umbrella that is the mission statement of EcoHouse? So really, it's just a pathway to get from actions to outcomes, and was great for us in figuring out our strategic plan.
So finally, after many months and many meetings, we had the goal of our project, our strategic plan. So that document is 6 pages and it outlines a number of things. First of all, being our preface, which we mentioned a bit earlier in the beginning of the presentation, our situation analysis, our mission statement and vision statements, which were shown before, our overall goals, and our strategic priorities. So here you can see we came up with 4 strategic priorities that we're going to work towards as a collective. The first of us being we will exemplify sustainable living. Secondly, we will continue to educate others and seek education for the bettering of the collective and our community. We will implement outreach projects in the Juniata College campus and within the Huntingdon community and beyond. And we will pursue environmental justice through a lens of intersectionality and accessibility.
So our first strategic priority is that EcoHouse will exemplify sustainable living. We want to make sure that our physical living space is conducive to sustainable living and demonstrates our commitment to sustainable living. And as Erin mentioned, there are parts of the college's long-term plan that will impact our current physical structure. So in thinking of a new space, to make sure it's optimized and best suits sustainable living, we hope to work with the administration in order to design a new EcoHouse structure. Also, specific budget allocations will be made for maintaining and improving our sustainable living measures. Individually, EcoHouse members will create sustainability goals to continually move towards more sustainable living. And as a community as a whole, help keep each other accountable and help each other move towards more sustainable living. In terms of measures indicating success, we hope that the administration will consider EcoHouse priorities in their planning and will facilitate construction or renovation of the EcoHouse structure. And we hope to open our compost system to the campus community to better show our commitment to sustainable living and be a better example of that to the community.
Our second strategic priority is that we will continually educate others and seek education for the bettering of the collective and the community. Key initiatives of this priority are that we are going to plan events that encompass a variety of disciplines and subject matters, and that we will require members to participate in a 1-credit course or research project each semester. Measures indicating the success of this priority are that we were successfully able to host 2 events per month and track the attendance, that we were able to seek and receive feedback from the student body, and that we were able to include this class or research credit on each member's college transcript.
So thirdly, EcoHouse will implement outreach projects on the Juniata College campus and within the Huntingdon community and beyond. So some of the key initiatives we thought of were volunteering within the Huntingdon community. As we talked about before, we'd like to volunteer with organizations such as the Soup Kitchen or the Community Garden. We like to collaborate with other clubs beyond the ones beyond our pre-existing relationships, and create and explore outreach opportunities with Huntingdon businesses, like we mentioned earlier, Green Space, possibly Standing Stone, Garlic Clove, and other institutions, like we mentioned Dixon College and their collective. And the measures to indicate success would be to plan at least 2 collaborative events on the Juniata campus and 2 in the Huntingdon community.
Our fourth strategic priority is EcoHouse will pursue environmental justice through the lens of intersectionality and accessibility. And this is a really, really important one to EcoHouse. It's mentioned in both our vision and our mission statement. And our key initiatives to help us to do this, one is to select our 1-credit courses that have social justice focuses in order to learn and grow in our understanding of environmental justice. And the other is to develop professional connections with the support of Juniata Department of Peace and Conflicts, so that we can find new ways to be active in the community and continue to gain new perspectives, since that's really important to the idea of intersectionality and accessibility. And our measures indicating success for this are including social justice components in a minimum of half of our events, so that we can include environmental justice on campus, and actively seeking and receiving feedback from the student body so that we can gauge the impact that we have on the campus community.
And looking forward, we are going to focus on pulling this action and this plan into action, and with both returning EcoHouse members and new members who will be joining the EcoHouse this coming year. And we're also going to be working on creating bylaws, which are going to be exciting and kind of create more of a framework so we have that going forward. And continuing on.
In terms of budget looking forward, it was briefly mentioned in the presentation that we hope to look at external sources of funding as well, things like external grants. And hopefully in the future, what we would like to move towards is having EcoHouse being endowed. That would be great. And also, we want to allocate in our budget specifically towards our strategic priorities to make sure that we have the financial resources we need to carry out our strategic plan.
And I do want to mention also that our full strategic plan document is going to be available on our website by the end of the week, and will stay there for the foreseeable future. So if you want to read the whole document, it will be there for you as well. And yeah, Dr. Walker? You're muted. Oh, Elisha, sorry, Elisha.
I just wanted to take a second, sorry, Dr. Walker, to acknowledge a few people without whom this wouldn't be possible. So first, I'd like to thank Dr. Walker for all of her help and support throughout this as our research advisor, and the only person who knew what a strategic plan was. And then I'd also like to thank Dr. Pelkey, who was on sabbatical this semester, but has served as our advisor in all of the other semesters and has been monumentally helpful in the creation of EcoHouse. And then I want to thank Elke Arneson, Hannah Buckwalter, and Haley Lederer, who are members of EcoHouse / kind of alumni, and their contributions to the house definitely helped us get to this point. So thank you to everyone.
And could you please join me in a virtual round of applause? I can do that. Not sure I know how to do that.
That's wonderful.
And just a clarification question. We do have until 1 o'clock. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, I'm going to pop different. I actually have to plug in my computer. 1 second. Right there. So I can call on people for questions, but I think it might be more fruitful if all of you opened up your participation list, if you click on that icon at the bottom, and if any of members of the group would say, I'd really like to answer the question from, then I will unmute that particular person. Otherwise, I'll just scroll through randomly. So those of you who would like to ask a question, if you would electronically raise your hand, and I will scroll back and forth and see who has a hand up. So over to group members. I think we should go with Uma first. All right, unmute. Unmute, I tell you. Okay, Sinead, are you with us?
Yeah. I am indeed here.
Okay,
yeah.
I kind of got it to work, but if I can't get it to work, I'll call on you. Thanks.
Yeah, no worries. So you can see there are a number, well, there's one question and some comments as well on the chat. You can see that's great.
Yes, I'll share those comments at the end. Yes. Uma.
So nice job. It was impressive, all of the work that you've done. So my question is about numbers. You said that your average participation was low. You collected that data. So do you have a number, and what would you like it to grow to?
Good question. So we kept all of our data. I'm not sure where it's located right now, but I believe our average participation was probably around 10. I want to say that it does vary pretty greatly. For our Vegan Thanksgiving, for example, which was probably our most popular event of the past 2 years. We have had it for the past 2 years. And I believe that attendance was about 25 for both years. And then we have had events with just a couple people. So it does vary greatly. And like I said, yeah, our average is probably 10 or 12. And we would like that to grow. The size of our vegan Thanksgiving was pretty big, but honestly would have probably been larger if we had to cap it because we could only make so much food. So we would like to, first of all, not have to cap any of our events at attendance, ideally in the future. And I mean, personally, 25 was great, and then upwards of 30 would be great in the future as well. And we are getting some really great new members in the house next year who are in a variety of years. So we're hoping to expand our reach that way as well.
Thank you, Erin.
Yeah, thank you.
Other questions, comments, reflections? Sinead, if you see a raised hand that I've missed, please let me know.
And please feel free to ask anything. We've been
I
working
can
on
ask another question
Sure.
about the stigma. I was surprised to hear that. So you are hearing feedback that there's stigma against the EcoHouse among the students. Is that correct?
Yeah. Does anyone else want to talk?
Sure. Environmentalism, like as a whole, as like a group, tends to like have, people tend to think of certain, like they tend to like mount certain people in with that. Like they would like look at EcoHouse and originally, like last year, we were all like juniors and female, and so based off of who was in the house and things like that, and based off of who like historically has been involved in environmentalism can also often get like kind of like stigmatized a little bit in the fact that like maybe it's for some people but not for everyone, but we all know that it's for everyone. So one of our fears as EcoHouse is that people will look at EcoHouse and say, well, those are the people who are in it, so I can't be in it. So the fear is that people won't understand how inclusive we want to be and how much we want EcoHouse to be able to represent all of campus.
Thank you.
We have a question from Norris Muth.
You guys hear me?
Mhm.
I guess I can put the video on too there. I was just wondering about, not to make it about me, but at least from my perspective, right, as a faculty member, what is it that how do you see the role of faculty potentially involved in this? And I won't steer your question, just other than say that I feel I don't do a whole lot for EcoHouse, and that's sort of a shame. And I'm just sort of curious about what your guys' view is on the role of faculty or other college players. Thanks.
I can go ahead and answer that. Great question, and I appreciate the enthusiasm to support us. One of the things we kind of discussed last semester is the possibility of having, faculty spotlight. So you could choose a subject that you are passionate about, something you study that could also relate to environmentalism, and we come into our house and have like a series of special talks and something that will relate different disciplines and subject matters back to environmentalism.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Erin, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. We do have a lot of, like Cassie said, we have a lot of ideas for future years. And so one of our events this year, which was the faculty open house, like we're trying to reach out more and get more involved. I've had some emails from professors about us getting involved in community outreach things in Huntingdon, because so many of our professors live in the Huntingdon area. And so a large part of our strategic plan obviously has been increasing our community outreach, and that does have a lot to do with professors as well. So yeah, we're looking forward to that.
Before I take the next question, does anyone else from the group want to add anything to that? Okay, we have a question in the chat box from Neil Pelkey, who says, how did the house help you grow as people?
We could probably all answer that. Yeah, Cassidy?
Yeah, I can answer that again. For me, what I found really remarkable is the community we created. I never expected to find such a group that we could really connect and feel safe in that space together to grow as individuals. I know my confidence has grown, my passion has grown, like linking with these other people who have similar passions. It's really amazing to have found such a community where we can explore those things.
To go off that, I would say that I also was really influenced by the community of everything, and I am and continue to be inspired by everyone in the house and everyone who's coming into the house. It's just a really exciting community to be a part of, and I'm so thankful I have the opportunity.
Yeah, I agree with both of those, and it's been really great to be part of the community, but also part of kind of starting a community like this. Like I said, we're only in our this was just our second year of existing in the current way that we do. And so being able to create the strategic plan for the next couple of years was really a privilege and was really fun. And to kind of have a lasting impact on the college, and obviously it had even more of an impact on me personally. So yeah, being able to be part of the start of something that's bigger than ourselves has been really great, and will definitely carry with me for the rest of my life.
Personally, for me, before joining EcoHouse, I was very passionate about the environment, but not very knowledgeable about a lot of parts of it and about sustainable living in general. And so being a part of EcoHouse for me has been really encouraging and motivating for me to learn more about how to live sustainably. And I've gotten to learn from a bunch of really great people more about that. So it's been a wonderful, wonderful thing for me.
We have a question from Lauren Bowen. Is she still here? I think. Yes.
Yeah, I'm still here. And I'm going to channel sort of Nora Smith, right? Not make it about me, but I am curious because a few times you referenced ways in which the administration might be able to partner with you going forward. And from a priority point of view, I'm just curious if you have some short-term steps, immediate, and maybe some longer-term steps that in ways that you would like to receive administrative support, and if you have particular offices in mind. And I'll call on Erin specifically. I don't mind doing.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, so we were planning on doing, my part of the research was the Juniata administration, and I was planning on doing a lot more with that, but then we couldn't come back to campus. So I was planning on doing like in-person interviews and talking more with you all about that.
I'm not being critical. I'm just curious if you've thought through sort of a timeline, and maybe not.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I love the idea of endowing it and working with advancement, but I don't know if that was sort of the first priority, if you had some others. So.
Yeah, so a lot of those are, a lot of our ideas for that are definitely going to be put more into action next semester. I think for the actual like launching of the plan, which was the third part of the whole outline, that was definitely part of that, which is unfortunate because most of us are seniors. And so we will not be able to be part of that. But getting more involved with the faculty and administration, the advancement office, and getting endowed is like a really big goal that we have going forward, that next year's members are definitely going to be taking on. So good luck, you guys. So yeah, that's definitely a huge step going forward that we weren't able to address as directly as we wanted to this semester because of time restrictions and.
No worries. Okay, thanks. Yeah.
Thank you.
Now we have a question from Mason Broderick.
Hey everybody. Thanks to having a couple classes with Dr. Pelkey, I understand the kind of disproportionate effect that environmental like spills and disasters and mistreatment can have on poor communities and especially people of color. And so I was wondering what you guys were planning on doing for the local and the more national community to try and help out with efforts like that.
Yeah, and I do want to include Savannah Parsons' question in this as well, so we can tie those both together. Thanks for being here, Savannah, by the way. So yeah, it's a huge issue for us. That is the reason that we included environmental justice as the basis of our plan. So on a really local level, we like local as in Juniata College, we are planning on doing a lot more work with Plexus and Prism and Emoja next year. That is like the top priority of our 4th strategic priority. And going forward from that, we want to listen. We want to listen to them, and we want to listen to what we can do to be active helpers, but also acknowledge our privilege and our different worldview. And education for us, self-education is huge on that. So self-education, listening, and collaborating, I'd say.
We have a question from Daniel Welliver.
Hello, thank you everyone for your presentation. The question I've been turning around in my head relates a lot to what Mason just asked. I'm thinking about the local community beyond the Juniata campus and how strong the gun culture, the hunting culture, the fishing culture is in Huntingdon County. And I'm thinking about the issues that you learned about the stigmatization of environmentalists and who they are and what they care about, and that they're only a select group of people. And connecting also with your desire to intersect with, identities of race or other kinds of identities that aren't typically associated with environmentalism. And I'm thinking social class is important there as well. And we have so many working class people in Huntingdon that could really, I think, learn a lot about you and what you care about if you just listen to them as well. So maybe finding your way, you mentioned the conservation district, that might be a really nice bridge to some of these folks. But maybe getting out to a fishing club or a hunting club and just saying, hey, I'm from EcoHouse at Juniata College. I'm here just to listen to what you guys are interested in, or gals are interested in, what you do and what's important to you. Because I think you'd find a lot of common values. At least that's what I've learned in my own life when I intersect with people in rural communities in an authentic way, is I learn what they can teach me as well as what I can share with them about what I care about. So that's just a rambling thought process for you to react to or ask questions about.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to monopolize this, so if any of you guys, please jump in and shut me up. So we, one thing that I know that we have done this semester, and as I mentioned, this is an ongoing process, and once we start actually implementing the plan, hopefully we're going to come up, or they are going to come up with a lot of new ideas and actions to take. But this semester we did attend, or those of us who could, we attended the revitalization of Huntingdon meeting that they had on campus. That was really important to us to go and see where where Huntingdon was headed in terms of sustainability, and yeah, so that's just something that we've done thus far. And we were going to get involved in a tree planting project that Amy Fraser-Yoder asked us to get involved in, but unfortunately we couldn't because of, current situation. So yeah, we're really looking forward to implementing the plan. I am glad that it only took us one semester to write it so that we can start implementing it as soon as possible.
Yeah, and sorry. Building off of what you said in terms of reaching out to other environmental groups, I think the ESS department in general has a lot of hunters and fishermen. And I think I've come across this semester a specific stigma towards EcoHouse from that sort of from people involved in that. So I think it's just about turning the conversation around and asking them, like, you know, we do share the same values, like what sort of events would you want to see EcoHouse hold, and like how can we be more inclusive environmentally in that way as well?
Yeah, I think engaging is really important. As a hunter and a fisher myself, I find myself trying to make these connections because I don't come from that background, but I've developed it going to Juniata and living in a rural environment. And I think it's a good lesson for all of us to take our ideas and connect with people outside of environmentalism and throughout our different disciplines, whether that be theater and art, and try to make these connections and see how we can find common ground. So that's a great idea going forward, is trying to make these connections and listen to other communities around us.
I'm just aware of time. I think this is an excellent conversation you've generated. We are out of time. If you would join me again with a virtual round of applause, and knowing that the work that you have done together is going to continue to make an impact on our campus community for years to come. So
thank you so much. Thank you to all of you for being here. We really, really, really appreciate it. It made everything worthwhile. So thank you very much.